Hello, my name is T. Berry. Today is Tuesday, July 25th, 2023, and today I am interviewing Mrs. Dorothy Doolittle. The interview is taking place over the telephone. Mrs. Doolittle, the purpose of this interview is to add your story to the social history of Elgin for its current and future residents. This is a broad-based questionnaire where we hope you elaborate as you see fit, and we welcome all your answers. We're looking for a social history on you that should run about 20 minutes, but it can take longer. So, Ms. Doolittle, do I have your permission to proceed with the interview?
Oh, yes, and I am honored.
Thank you. I would like to start by asking, where were you born?
You know, I was actually born in Taylor, Texas. My parents, I grew up in Elgin, so as soon as I left the hospital, I was in Elgin.
Oh, so you all were living in Elgin?
Yeah.
Okay. So was Fleming's Hospital in existence at that time?
Yes, it was, and I don't know why. Mom and Dad decided to take me to Taylor instead of the Fleming Hospital, but yeah, I remember that well.
Well, tell me about your parents.
Well, neither were very highly educated. They were hard workers, and I actually got my work ethic from my mother. She was just an extremely hard worker, had raised great big gardens and shared with all our neighbors, and so that was part of where I got my work ethic. And my father was a steam fitter, and I think his last job was in, it was on the coast, and it was with Dow Chemical. And he was, I'm not sure, he was a steam fitter there. And then both my parents, hopped the farm, if you will, and bought Sunset Hotel and restaurant. So they worked there for about 15 years before they sold it.
Do you know where they came from? Did you tell me their names?
Yeah, I did not. My mother's name is Emma Moore, and my father's name was Mac Moore. And they're both from Elgin. I mean, my mom was an urban. They both went to school in Elgin, and so we're just all Elginites.
So your mother was named Moore before she married?
Yeah, her name was Urban.
Urban, okay.
Yeah.
Do you know where they migrated to Elgin from?
They were both born and raised here in Elgin.
What about their parents or grandparents? Where did they come from?
Well, my grandmother, mother's mother, actually came from Germany. They were part of the Wends, group they left Germany, oh Lord, back in the 1800s when they were religious, getting out of religious persecution.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother on my mother's side, on my father's side, Janie Moore, she was actually a teacher for 50 years in Elgin, and I don't think she was ever paid anything, so her pay was actually eggs and milk and food to raise her family. My father's father actually died when my dad was 6 years old. So my grandmother on my dad's side raised 4 kids and by herself. So she is one of my heroes.
Yeah, I can see why. Now, the teacher, was she teaching, was this before Elgin School District was started?
I don't think so. My grandmother she also did some teaching out on the prairie in the Blacklands, around Amanda, somewhere, some other places. I remember asking my favorite teachers at Elgin High School was Thelma Harrison, and I asked her if she knew my grandmother, and she said that she had known of her, and but did not have. I think the age difference was too great.
Did you have any brothers and sisters?
Yes, I had one brother, and he graduated from Elgin High School and joined the Marines, and came back home and picked up his livelihood through heavy equipment like bulldozers and backhoes and that sort of thing. So he was a hard worker also, and very good at his job. And I think he worked part of the time. His last days of his employment was with a construction company here in Austin, and the name escapes me at the moment. But anyway, so that was his livelihood, and then of course I went on to college and started teaching and coaching.
Okay. What was your childhood like?
Well, I grew up on the farm, and I loved horses, loved dogs. I borrowed actually a horse named Diamond from Dimmitt White, and Dimmitt. The horse actually belonged to Hood Tom, and one of our neighbors, and he passed away. And Dimmitt White allowed me to take Diamond home with me, and then just keep him there. And I rode him every day. He was 17 hands high. It was a beautiful, beautiful thoroughbred cutting horse, if you can believe that.
Was your brother older or younger? And did you tell me his name?
Oh, my brother's name is Johnny McMore, and he was 5 years older than me. So he was my older brother.
Okay.
And he just was deceased, and I think he was 60 years old when he passed away.
What about school? You started school here in Elgin?
Oh yes, I was first grade, and my class was actually one of the last classes to actually go to the old red brick building. It was what's the name of that street? I think it was Avenue C, but it was closer to Main Street. Anyway, so my class was the last one to go. I was in the second grade when we moved. But anyway, that old red school was actually where my mother and father went to school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I really hate that building is gone. It has so much history, and it was just a shame that it was, it's not with us anymore.
So that's where you started elementary.
Right.
And what about middle school or junior high?
Well, middle school, went actually, middle school was actually in the barracks at the old high school. So that's where that's where our classes were. We moved over from Elgin Elementary to then it was called junior high.
Mm-hmm.
So our teachers were in the barracks.
Are there certain memories from elementary or middle school that come to mind?
Well, I just remember having, we all knew each other, and I just remember all my classmates, and I remember what a good athlete Becky Huff was, and she was when she got up to play softball and got up to bat, everybody moved in back of the field. Now, she was such a good hitter and just a real good athlete. was, I never was that good in those kind of sports. So
Yeah.
I always admired her for that. And then another classmate, Karen LeBeau, she was an excellent athlete as well. And she just had just a natural athleticism about her. So it was just some great memories. In our class, which graduated in '65, we still have class luncheons every quarter. And we have really good turnouts, and it's just a joy to see everybody and see the transition of everyone from our days in school together to to present day.
You mentioned those two young athletes, but weren't you voted most athletic in high school?
Oh gosh, I was. But I was a scrappy little basketball player, so I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's why I was awarded that award. There was no track and field offered to girls at that time, so really only sport we had was basketball.
Uh-huh.
So so I played that, and I had great memories of that too. Gosh, there's some flashbacks. I was pretty little, so I was on the floor, it seemed like a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of a scrappy player.
Yeah.
I had kind of a running hook shot. That's the only way I could get over a person that was guarding me. So I practiced that every day. Every day.
So what other activities were you involved in?
I was a cheerleader,
Oh, okay.
and that was memorable. Gosh, I can't remember too much about. However, that was a lot of fun, and that was kind of the days when cheerleaders were voted on by the student body. And it was kind of a popularity contest. I really didn't think I was that good of a cheerleader. I thought there were other folks that were much better, but somehow I got nominated and got on that squad. So Donna Lundgren was the head cheerleader, and she was great. We had we'd go to cheerleader camp, and gosh, we would make homecoming mums for school. We made signs, and lots of laughs.
Yeah.
Still laugh about that.
Yeah. So you mentioned one of your teachers, and I think you said she was your favorite teacher. Could you give us a little more information about her and some of the other teachers you enjoyed?
Oh, yeah. Miss Velma Harrison was just a real hard, strict teacher, which I really appreciate her. I was scared to go to class without reading assignments. So that's one impression she made on me. She was very strict, and she was very much had prepared me for biology in college. So I always appreciate her, and we kept in communication after I graduated from college, and she lived to be 100 years old. I think she was 101, and I didn't get to share with her my experiences on the Olympic team in '92. I talked to her before I left for France, and when I got back, she had passed away, and I just really hated that I didn't get to share the experiences I had with track and field.
Yeah. Were there any other teachers that you would like to mention?
Well, there were a lot of them. Actually, another favorite was Miss Fitzpatrick, and she was an English teacher again. These teachers did not mess around. You just didn't mess around in that class. And she was, again, another teacher that I think I'm so grateful for because she had, again, prepared me for my college work. And then there was one teacher, her name was Miss Crozier. She was a home economic teacher. She was so funny, and I learned how to, well, I say I learned how to sew. I don't even like to sew, but kind of learned how to cook, and of course I'm not a very good cook either. But she just had just neat classes, and I always look forward to going to home economics because it was just sort of just a break from the academic part. So it was that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Did you have any jobs when you were growing up?
Oh gosh, yes. I worked for the Stories had a little hamburger joint, and I worked in, for that for 50 cents an hour, by the way, which was pretty good. It's all relative anyway. So I cooked hamburgers, I cleaned the place, a soda jerk. I made a pretty mean milkshake and mugs. So I would come just after school and then work till about 10 o'clock and then go home. But that gave me enough money to purchase my clothes so that my parents didn't have to worry about that.
It sounds like you should have gotten a free meal out of it also.
Oh, I did that too.
And what was the name of that establishment?
Oh, it was Stories Dairy Cream or something like that.
Where was it located?
Well, it was located on that little curve that went around South Main. It was on Main Street, but it was headed toward 290.
Oh,
so it was
yeah.
right in that little. I think there's a taco place there.
Right. I think after the Dairy Queen went out of business, there was a convenience store. Never been a convenience store there well, but but now they sell tacos there on the weekend. Well, what do you recall about other business establishments in Elgin during that time?
Well, I worked for a little while for Checks. That was a 5-and-dime store. I didn't care for that too much. And, this is kind of a funny story. I hope it doesn't offend Checks, but when I was in grade school, my teacher, I think her name was Ruby Creel, was in the 4th grade, and she asked me where I got my I think it was a ruler on my paper or something, and I told her if I got it at Nickel Snatchers. And I can imagine she probably wanted to laugh out loud, but my mom and dad always called that store the Nickel Snatchers. I didn't know it was Nickel Checks for a long time. No. Anyway, and then when I started working at Nickel Checks, I often chuckled at what my parents had called that store.
Yeah. What other business establishments do you reach?
Oh gosh, Southside. That was a place that it was a real treat to go to Southside and have Elgin hot dogs. And we didn't call it hot sausage; we called it hot dogs. And I remember Jerry Stash was the owner of that place, and there was a concrete floor, but there was sawdust, put all over the concrete floor. So I guess they didn't have to sweep them off very much. I don't know. But we ate off of brown paper and crackers, and so I remember those days too.
Well, as a high schooler, what did you all do for entertainment?
We rode around. We didn't, we just, and frankly, I didn't have too much time to do that because I was working all through high school. So, but that was our main entertainment, was going out for a ride. So, but backing up a little bit, another establishment that I remember was LTEX Theater. And, I know that Miss Hanky, I think, was the owner of that place, and she was real strict. So we couldn't, throw popcorn or anything like that, so we'd get kicked out. But I remember that our neighbors across the railroad tracks, our black neighbors, were in the balcony. And the white kids were all, and the Mexican kids were all down on the main floor. So I think the balcony was probably the better seat.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, we were definitely separated, and I had a lot of trepidation about that time.
What about after high school? What did you do?
Well, first of all, I got married when I was 18. So I just went from my parents' house to my husband's house. And then I went to, I went to Temple Junior College first. That was, my husband was, at that time, was coaching in McGregor.
Oh, so where was he from, and
Yeah, he was from East Texas.
and what was his name? Or what is his name?
Doolittle. Yeah.
Can you repeat it?
Pardon?
Can you repeat his name?
Austin Doolittle III.
Okay. And where was he from?
He was from Naples, Texas, which is East Texas, or Northeast Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he was, he graduated from there, and so we're both native Texans. And he was on a football scholarship at Southern Arkansas. And then he moved back and actually graduated from East Texas State University. I think it's called UT at Commerce,
Commerce,
or
yeah.
at Commerce, something like that now.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where he's from. But yeah, I went on to junior college at Temple Junior College, and then I transferred to Mary Hardin Baylor, which was still very expensive, but it was less expensive than Baylor University. And Belton was a little bit closer to McGregor than Baylor in Waco. So I graduated from there in 1969, and then my first teaching job was at McGregor. It was H.G. Isabel School, and that was a middle school or junior high. And so I stayed there a year, and then my husband got the coaching job back in Elgin, which at that time was the last place I wanted to go. But I taught there for 5 years, and Austin continued to teach there. And then I did get the job at Westlake High School after that, and then I got into college coaching. And so I went from Elgin to Westlake to University of Missouri, and then back to Houston, and I stayed there 7 years, and I went to Stanford for 2 years, and then I got the head job at Tennessee. And that's where I retired from coaching.
Wow. I know you had an outstanding career as a runner and also as a coach. Could you give us a little capsule version of that?
Okay. Well, I started running actually while I was in college. It was kind of funny. I was taking an anatomy class and physiology class rather, and the professor had us participate in the Kenneth Cooper aerobics program. It was kind of like a continuing, this is something that she was trying to instill for us to keep doing for the rest of our lives, to stay physically fit. Well, I just kind of found my niche there, and I I ran and I found there were actually some road races, which I thoroughly enjoyed. There weren't that many women running, so it was easy for me to win. And so, when you're winning, you kind of like to keep doing that.
Yeah.
So I really had my heart set on running a marathon. And so the first marathon I ran was the Houston Tenneco Marathon in Houston. I won that, and then I ran at White Rock in Dallas, and I was actually I did the Rice Festival Marathon, and I ran a pretty good time, and it ranked me number 5 in the United States and number 6 in the world. and but it was, it was funny because, there weren't that many women running. So, but I did qualify for Boston, and that year I finished 3rd woman in Boston. And I tell you what, T-Berry, it was a fluke because they had a heat wave. They called it a heat wave in Boston that year, and it was 82 degrees. Well, shoot, that's pretty cool here in Texas. So people were jumping out like flies, and so I managed to hang in there and finish 3rd woman that year. And so anyway, that was kind of neat. The 2 women that beat me were also Americans. So this was before the wonderful Kenyan athletes started running, and oh my gosh. And, so anyway. And then after that, I ran my best time at I was the initial, or the inaugural winner of the Chicago Marathon. And again, there weren't that many women running, but I was invited there, so they actually paid my way. I was so impressed. And so I ended up running my very best time, and then I decided to go into college coaching. And frankly, that was in 77, and my husband and I were thinking about trying to just taking a camper and moving to Colorado Springs so I could eat, sleep, and train and try to make the Olympic team. But at that time, women's marathon was not in the Olympics, but it was rumors that it was moving in that direction. So that's what we had planned to do. Then I was offered the job at the University of Missouri, and I said, well, I better take that job. Instead of training and trying to make the Olympic team. And it's a good thing I did, because that was in 1980 when it was supposed to go in, or the marathon was supposed to go in. The United States, and I'd say Jimmy Carter, boycotted the Russian Olympics, the Moscow Olympics.
Right. They had invaded Afghanistan.
And so I'm glad I chose to go and take the college job instead of a running career.
Listening to you describe your athletic career as a runner, I think you owe that to the fact that when you were growing up as a student athlete, you were scrappy.
I think so. And I have to tell you this, I think one of the things that gave me a lot of endurance when I was, I guess probably in middle school, my mom had this huge garden behind this big tank. We call them tank in Texas, so in middle part of Texas. It's a big old stock pond, and it was a pretty big pond. And while Mother was working in the garden, I swam in the pond. So I did laps back and forth, and I think that endurance training back then probably helped me to be an endurance runner.
Yeah.
So, in fact, actually, my students at Westlake, a lot of my student athletes in Westlake that were on my cross-country team, a lot of them were swimmers. So I just deduct that probably was a good training.
Yeah. Well, tell us about your experience at the Olympics.
Well, it was, much stress off of them as possible. And I was the field event coach, and so we would take, well, actually, me and the East Germans and the Russians were kind of on the same wavelength because we were trying to get the transportation to our practice venues. And the transportation had no concept of field events and what their needs were. And so thank goodness, I had these little bottles of alcohol. You know, you get on the plane, and I had a lot of T-shirts, and I bribed our way into those venues.
Yeah.
And I was coaching at the University of Tennessee, so I had a lot of Tennessee T-shirts, and I would give the guard, you know, a T-shirt so we could go in and do our training.
What year was that, Doc?
That was in '92.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was in '92. So, and I...
Was that Barcelona?
That was in Barcelona, yeah. So after after we had fulfilled our duties during the day, which is ended about 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night, me and this other young woman who was a lawyer from LA, and her name was Julie, I tell you, we went out on the town, and we had decided that we wanted a souvenir from Barcelona. And you know, these long banners that they had with the Olympic circles, and it had, you know, had the mascot. We were determined to get a couple of those banners. Well, you couldn't get them. The only way you could get them was to steal them. So one morning, about 1 o'clock in the morning, after we finished dinner and were walking around Barcelona, we decided, we saw those banners, and only thing I had with me were fingernail clippers. So we started clipping on those, and all of a sudden we heard these whistles going off, and here comes a whole barrage of police running after us. And we took off. And we jumped in a cab, and we got back to the village, and we were still determined to get those banners. So what we did when we got to the village, and this was during the day, we had these little bags, you know, equipment bags, and we put our shoes and our dirty underwear in those bags. And we got through the security gate, and of course everybody was looking we went to the entrance. So we were behind the people that were at the entrance, and there we had little scissors, and we got those banners, and we tucked them in those equipment bags and put our dirty underwear on top. So when we went through the security gate, they didn't want to rummage around in there.
Yeah.
And then when I got back to Tennessee, I wanted to hang it, but then I knew, gosh, I can't hang this because people will know the only way you get these things is to steal it. Oh, God.
Well, you certainly had a very eventful life, Miss Dorothy Doolittle. And who would you say had the greatest influence on your life?
Oh, I think my husband. Gosh, we coached at the same schools, and then when I was offered a college job, he supported me 100%. I mean, there was no hesitation, and for him, I had a wonderful career. And he found jobs, and he coached a little bit, and mainly supported me. And so I will always be grateful for that. So he was my strongest influence. And even through college, I mean, he just was always very supportive. So I was very lucky.
Well, you eventually came back to Elgin.
Right? Yeah. Back in, when my father passed away and my mom needed some help, I decided, we've got to go back home. And I wanted to stay at Knoxville for at least a couple of more years so I could get retirement benefits. But
Mm-hmm.
So Dr. Bradley hired me, and gosh, the only thing I could do was coach track and field. But anyway, I could teach PE, so I was hired at the middle school, and you know, those middle school days back at Booker T. Washington were so wonderful because I had these little sixth graders, and especially these little boys that were just precious. And we actually, starting with that sixth grade boys, we didn't. There was no cross country for junior high or middle school. And so the next year we got it in, and I don't remember how we did that, but anyway, we got it in, and my little boys got second in district behind her. But the next year, as freshmen, I moved up with my team to high school and taught special ed and taught some other classes. But anyway, this team was made up of all, I think every one of them were from Mexico. And they were just, that was Alejandro, Luis, Renee, Valvilla, gosh, I'm going to leave somebody out. But they were just fabulous students and athletes.
Yeah.
And graduated with honors, and of course Alejandro went on to run in college, and all those guys were just fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. And you also, did you coach girls also?
Yeah. Gosh, when I came to Elgin, these girls were so good. I mean, I could not take credit for the talent that was at Elgin. That was Rashard Thomas and Mary Alice Russell.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, I can see their faces and I can't pull their names out. But it's just, gosh. But anyway, they were fabulous athletes. And so I think we ended up placing fourth, I think, in the UIL, but we did win the 4x200. Mary Alice, if she had not run in the 4x200, she would have won that 200 meters. No doubt in my mind. But there was another really good athlete that beat her, but I just know that Mary Alice could have whipped her. And so anyway, and Richard was a sprinter, and she did great. So we just had a wonderful time. And also, what was that guy's name? It was one of the guys that Garcia. Shoot. Anyway, he was a 300 meter hurdler, and he.
Nathaniel.
What was his name?
Nathaniel.
Nathaniel. Oh my God! And he, he was doing really well, and 300 meter hurdles, and before we went to the regional qualifiers, we worked on his steps to knock off one of his steps. And I think that was a big, and he was able to do that without reaching or without overstriding, and I think that was helpful because he got, I know he placed, I believe, second at state. But anyway, they all just did a great job. We had a wonderful, wonderful group.
Yeah, I think, let's see, Megan Ortiz and Denisha Johnson.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, Ms. Doolittle, Coach Doolittle, is there anything else you would like to say before we conclude the interview?
Well, the only thing I can say is that there are so many talented people that came through Elgin High School. And I really attribute one of my classmates, Kate Rivers, who is a fabulous musician. I go to as many concerts as I can that she goes. She is just fabulous. Her sister Ann, there were so many people that came through Elgin High School that really did big things. And I attribute that to the support, the closeness that we shared as students. And, I just will always, well, of course, Eldon's always going to be home. And I will always cherish that, that whole time, and not only in high school, but in coming back to teach in the 70s, and then coming back in 97. It was just it's just a great time in my life.
Yeah. Well, I certainly enjoyed going down memory lane with you, and as always, I always enjoyed talking to you. And thank you so much.
Well, T. Barry, you're the best, and I tell you, I don't know how many times you were Outstanding Teacher of the Year, but I could see that in action, and so I appreciate you as well.
Okay. Well, have a good evening, and we'll have to talk soon.
Okay.
All right.